Hello and welcome. I'm Courtney Seeley, the teacher facilitator here at the Parent Resource Center. I'm here today with Sandy Sprague, the parent facilitator, and I wanted to take a quick moment just before we get started, just to let you know a little bit more about the Parent Resource Center and how it came about. So almost 30 years ago, the Virginia Department of Education, realizing that students benefit immensely from strong, positive relationships between schools and families, set up parent resource centers in counties and cities across Virginia to model the working relationship between teachers and families by placing a special education teacher and a parent of children in special education in each center to work with families, to educate, to provide resources, and to help them navigate their own special education journeys so that they can become their child's best advocate. Spotsylvania County Public Schools decided early on to open up their PRC to all families and all staff to support the success of all of our students. So we are supported by both special education and general education funding. Our PRC provides three main functions. Our first function is providing confidential consultations to all families and staff. We provide assistance by sharing our collection of resources, community agency and provider connections, or by directing inquiries or concerns to the appropriate party. We help problem solve, but we are also just here to listen too if needed. Our second main function is to provide general and special education information sessions just like this one to our families and staff. Our videos of our sessions are posted on our YouTube channel, so you can access them at any time, as this one will be added to that channel shortly. Our third function is to maintain a free lending library containing learning materials, books, manipulatives, games, and other resources for children pre-K through 6th to support literacy and mathematics, as well as a section for parents containing books, videos, and information on a variety of topics ranging from special education, disabilities information, transition from school to adulthood, and emotions and behavior, and other general parenting topics. So right now I just want to take a quick second to introduce ourselves. I'm Courtney Seeley, and I am the teacher facilitator at the Parent Resource Center, and I've been with the Parent Resource Center this is my 4th year. I've been in education for 24 years. About half of that was spent as a special education teacher and an autism specialist. And then half of that time was also spent as a general education teacher in the classroom working with in the inclusive setting with special education teachers. So that is my passion, is teaching middle school. So Sandy, I want to let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Sandy Sprague. I'm the parent facilitator at the Parent Resource Center. I have been around for about 29 years. So I started when my son was 4 years old, and he's now in his 30s and has 4-year-olds himself. Part of my background was being a parent of, 3 sons who all received special education in Spotsylvania County from the time they started school until they graduated and transitioned into the community. I also was very involved with the Rappahannock Community Service Board and several other agencies that really helped me live through what I did with my children, and then again be able to sit across the table from a team that really helped in the education of my children and also in the position that I am involved in.
Thank you, Sandy. All right, let's go on to the next slide and get started. Okay, so if you're joining us virtually, and actually today, I probably should have taken that out because all of you are joining us virtually today. You were sent a link to, you will be sent a link to this document so you can access the handouts that we're referencing in this presentation. So at this time, if you want to open up the chat, I have just put in a link to access a document that looks like this. There are going to be some resources and links that are hyperlinked in this document, and you're welcome if you have the ability to go through these while we're going through the presentation, or you want to wait till the end and go through them, that's fine. If you're watching a recording of this presentation on YouTube, please click on the link in the description of the video below to access a copy of this document. All right, so in this presentation, we're just going to cover the following, those 4 topics on the screen. This presentation, when we were planning it, we were kind of really trying to figure out what are those important things we want to share with families about how to become an effective IEP team member. And these are the 4 things that we really spend a lot of time going over with families. And then it really became apparent that this was a lot of information. So we decided that this presentation is going to be a collection of the resources that we frequently share with families who meet with us regarding the special education process, how they can be more involved in this process, how can they stay on top of the immense amounts of paperwork and stay organized, as well as one of the most important topics, communication between school and home, and how we can help you use these communication tips that we're going to share with you to your advantage. So all of these topics will help you become a more effective and engaged member of the IEP team. And we have provided training opportunities in the past on each of these topics in much more detail, but wanted to use this session as just a way, again, to share those most utilized and shared resources and to extend the invitation to our families who may need more in-depth information and resources or help to contact us so that we can meet with you individually and assist you. All right, so as a parent or a guardian, you are likely joining us today or watching this because you have a child receiving special education services, or you may be in the beginning stages of evaluation and here to learn more. Some of you may be seasoned veterans, and some of you may still be learning what special education is. And for this reason, we're going to spend a little bit of time going over the process briefly. So the special education process is often referred to as a cycle. Special education is instruction that is specially designed to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability. Under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, an individual is found eligible for special education under one of 13 categories. We can actually say 14 if we consider developmental delay as well. I like this slide. This particular graphic is in the linked handout that I provided for you in the chat. This is a really nice way to explain or to show the pathway that children take leading up to and through the special education process. In this graphic by the Hello Foundation, you can see a pathway that leads from a student assistance team in step 1, where that's where people in the school get together with the parents. They're going to notice that there's some challenges or some struggles going on, and they're going to try to figure out a way to provide some classroom-based interventions and see if that helps. Well, if not, then maybe a referral comes next, and that's step 2. A referral is a referral to be evaluated for special education. So if the team decides to move ahead with the evaluation, then you're moving on to step 3. And from there, we move on to an eligibility meeting to review the results of the evaluation in step 4. And from there, we move on to an IEP meeting to develop the IEP, or the Individualized Education Plan, in step 5. And the specially designed instruction being delivered through services in step 6. A yearly review and updated IEP is being developed each year in step 7. And then at the end of 3 years, you kind of go off the path and walk back up again to step number 3. And that's where the reevaluation would occur. And sometimes this reevaluation is called a triennial. So that's where that cycle would start coming in over and over again. So stepping off the path at any point due to a decision that the team made together, whether it's a decision not to evaluate, they might get to that step 2 and say, you know what, we really want to collect some more information. We really think that, some of these strategies are working. We're not going to evaluate at this time. Or if the evaluation has occurred, but then during the eligibility, they determine that they don't meet one of those 13 disability categories, and this is exciting because working in the secondary, in middle school and in high school settings, sometimes we got to see kids exit special education when those services were no longer needed. And that was always an amazing feeling. So it's normal to step off the path sometimes, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what that cycle looked like and give you just a synopsis of this if you're new to special education, so that you can kind of understand all these terms and what we're talking about. Any member of the IEP team, including a parent, can request an IEP meeting to review or suggest changes to the plan at any time. This change or an addition to an existing IEP is called an IEP addendum. So there's some terminology for you. I know I threw that out to you fast. If you're already familiar with these things, then this won't be such a new thing to chew on. There are some important timelines associated with special education that the team must adhere to by law. At any time during the special education cycle, a team has 65 business days to complete an initial evaluation or reevaluation. At any time during the special education cycle, a team has 30 calendar days to develop an individualized education plan. Additional timelines can be found in the VDOE guides on the following slide, VDOE standing for the Virginia Department of Education. There is a link to the VDOE supplemental guidance for evaluation and eligibility, and you can see the link right here on this slide. And you have access to these slides in the document that I shared with you in the chat. So if you click on that, it will take you to that document. And this particular graphic is one of my favorites. It comes from page 8 of that guide. And it's just a really nice, easy way of looking at the evaluation and development of the IEP and the timelines there. So these guides, as well as a copy of the Virginia Procedural Safeguards and a PACER Center document titled Know Your Parental Rights, are included on the links in the handouts that we shared with you. These particular guides are guides that we use frequently to look up information when we're working with parents. You may or may not have already seen these guides. You may or may not already have these in your possession, but they're filled with a lot of valuable information about the special education process, as you can see on the slide there. Also, the Virginia Procedural Safeguards is that packet of information that you get handed at every IEP meeting, every eligibility meeting. That has a lot of good information in it, even though you probably are sick of getting it if you're a seasoned veteran to sitting around that IEP table. Talking about parental consent, talking about confidentiality, discipline for students with special education is a little different than for students without an IEP. And also dispute resolution. And that is something that you really do need to be aware of so that you understand the steps to engage in if there is a dispute. Prior written notice, I often look at the PWN, that's what we call it, whenever we're working with parents, because it's a good summary. It's a good written explanation of any proposed changes in a child's IEP, whether it's something added, something taken away, or something refused. It is all written down in the PWN, and that often summarizes the meeting. All right, so an ombudsman, and that's a mouthful. An ombudsman is a person at the state level who serves as a designated neutral party who advocates for a fair process and provides confidential, informal assistance and supports to parents, guardians, advocates, educators, and students with disabilities. And this particular sheet is also available for you in the link. It is letting you know about the ombudsman and also how to contact the ombudsman if you should need to get in touch with them. Also, there's a link on this slide about additional dispute resolution resources from the VDOE website. All right, and this is something, the steps for resolving disputes is something that Sandy and I compiled from some of the resources. Some of our favorite resources that we get is from understood.org, as well as the Virginia Procedural Safeguards notice that you get handed at every meeting. So we took information from that to put this together just to give you an idea of the steps that, you know, what you should do first, you know, sort of like a chain of command. So as you can see there, and I'm just going to kind of point out the second step, we often have families contact us after meeting with the teacher, the team, or the school administrator and want information on where to go to next if they feel that an issue wasn't resolved. So our goal when people visit the PRC for this purpose is to help families find a way to brainstorm solutions, think outside the box, perhaps connecting the team with additional support staff, such as their school's special education coordinator from central office, or specialists that serve all schools in the county, such as our behavior specialists, autism specialists, or transition specialists, whatever, you know, that particular situation may need. If parents feel that after pulling in our county support staff that the issue was not resolved, we educate families on their rights and walk them through the next steps. This guide helps educate families on these levels of dispute resolution, as all the way through filing for due process, which is a court hearing, as well as information regarding civil suits and complaints filed with the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights. Okay. Just want to throw out some additional resources that VDOE also provides on their particular special education webpage on our website. We wanted to share especially the critical decision points is a really good one. That's a picture of the book that we actually have in the center. It is a guide developed, it's not, I guess it's more of a guide, developed in order to give families information that will assist parents with understanding not only what decisions will need to be made along your child's journey through special education, but also when those decisions need to be considered. Those timelines are very important. There are 5 short video modules on the website that step families through each of these key points. We have hard copies of this booklet at the center, like I mentioned. We really recommend that getting one of these guides before watching the videos or before looking at the site is very helpful. So feel free to request one at the end. Again, the link to this is in the presentation. You can visit this page and look up critical decision points. And there is, I think, a document in there that you can download if you're good with the digital stuff. But if you want a hard copy, let us know. VDOE does do provide training for critical decision points in person around the state and also virtually, which we would advertise in our monthly newsletter. So keep an eye out for that if that is coming up. There's also a lot of good information in there about diploma options, and you can see an example there of a fact sheet that they put out for understanding the applied studies diploma, what that means and what that entails. The Special Education Advisory Committee, or SEAC, at both the state and the local levels. There's good information there on that, as well as any upcoming training opportunities. And they also are putting a lot of their trainings on their YouTube channel. So now more so than ever, you can get a lot of good information off of that website. This slide is just kind of things that we often tell parents. We want to make sure that just so you know, you have the right to these things. You do have a right to an outside evaluation. It's called an independent educational evaluation, or an IEE, at no cost to you if you disagree with the results of your child's evaluation or reevaluation. And then the results of the IEE will be considered by the eligibility committee when you move on to that step. You have the right to request that the case manager schedule an IEP meeting if you have a concern. You don't have to wait for somebody at the school to schedule it. You can request that yourself. And did you know that you can add people to the IEP meeting invite? Just let your case manager know who you want to bring to the meeting and their contact information so that they can be sent the invite as well. Some people bring a relative or a friend who may be knowledgeable about special education. Some may bring an outside therapist or a caseworker from a community agency that their child is involved with. Some bring a professional advocate or a lawyer. It should be noted, though, that if you choose to bring an attorney, the school has the right to advance notice of that so that they have the opportunity to schedule an attorney to come to the meeting as well. It also should be noted that many families ask us if we can attend IEP meetings, and just like the state ombudsman, we are neutral entities that provide information and resources to families within our county, but we do not attend special education meetings on behalf of families. You can stop a meeting and request to reconvene if you feel that you need to bring somebody else in, or if you need to bring more information to the table. Likewise, if you do not feel comfortable signing an IEP at the end of the meeting, but would rather take it home to look it over or share with like a spouse or somebody else, the team will instruct you on how to get it back to them when you're ready to sign it. Please be aware, if you choose not to sign an IEP, that the previous IEP will be the one that remains in effect until such time that everybody on the team agrees and signs. You also have the right to compensatory services for your child if services in the IEP are not being provided or were not provided. This means that services that weren't provided will be made up in addition to the services that are currently ongoing. For more information about compensatory services, there is a link there that I put on the slide. If you have specific questions regarding your individual child about this, please contact your case manager, or you can reach out to us at the Parent Resource Center. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sandy as she moves into our next topic, parental input.
Okay, and this is a very important part. As a parent or guardian, you are a key member of the IEP team. Your input's very important. Providing it before the IEP meeting will help the team consider important goals and accommodations that your child may need to be successful in school. So you as a parent or a guardian, you're the only constant member of your child's IEP team from year to year. You are in possession of a tremendous amount of knowledge about your child that's invaluable to the team. Many times we sit down with parents to review the IEP drafts, and we see very little input in the IEP. If you wait until the IEP meeting to provide your input, you're really limited in the time that you have to think about it and share those thoughts on the IEP. Instead, consider a more effective way to share your input. Creating a student profile lets you frame your child's goals, strengths, likes and dislikes, and past successes in a way that can help you create a more effective parental input on the IEP. When your child's annual IEP date is coming up, look over your child's student profile that you created and summarize the document in a way that can easily be sent to your child's case manager, copied and pasted into your child's draft IEP. As you prepare for each upcoming IEP, consider the progress made toward their goals, the accommodations that they use that were essential to their success and need to be maintained, and perhaps those that no longer are needed. Talk to your child about their personal goals, like likes and dislikes. Use this information to update your child's student profile. So you're probably saying, okay, so what's a student profile? Have any of you created a profile for your child or sent an email at the beginning of the year to describe some kind of important piece of information that you felt like a teacher or a member of the staff might need to know? It's a wonderful way to not only share valuable information about your child with the school team, but it also shows that you're an actively engaging parent that expects a school-home partnership and sets the stage to positive communication between you and new members of your child's educational team each year. Profiles should be positive, strength-based, including language that highlights your child's strengths and positive attributes, as well as listing challenges and how it affects their learning and their life activities. This information could very well be the first thing a person sees about your child, even before meeting them. So let your child put their best foot forward with this information. Though you want to be as thorough as possible when sharing information about your child with another person who will be working with them, it's important to keep the profile very concise and organized. You want to include as much information as you need to, and for some children, it might be more than it is for others. As a general rule of thumb, it's a good idea to try to keep it as a one-pager. If you can also, so as a reader can go through the most important information they need to know about your child quickly. Some of the children have disabilities that are invisible. That would be, that could be a strength and a challenge. Many times I know for my children, one of them would be that one of my children had Tourette syndrome, and you could definitely see that he had a disability and it impacted him sometimes in his speech and making noises and movements. But what wasn't seen was the learning disabilities that he had. And then my other son had under the autism spectrum, he looked like a typical child. In fact, as he grew up, he looked like a football player. So definitely they didn't see his disability. It can be a strength that people don't see it and they don't make a judgment right up front. It also can be a challenge because sometimes they expect things out of him that they were not able to perform for them. So there you would have, again, certain information for them on both categories, under the strengths and under the challenges. Using words can really impact how people understand our children. One of my children were very hyperactive, and instead of putting hyperactive as a parent, I put that he had high energy, which was so true. You might talk about putting down, what about the smile? One of my children had the biggest smile, and to me, that was such a strength. Okay, so why should I develop a student profile for my child? You know, you're painting a big picture or taking a snapshot of your child to share with others. It could be teachers, could be school staff, it could be coaches, it could be doctors, it could be therapists, it could be community members that your child is involved in. I've even given my son's profile to family members because they really didn't know how autism affected his behavior. And it was just to kind of educate them and help them along understanding who he was. So hand out your student profile at the beginning of the school year to your child's teacher, teachers. You know, as a teacher, Courtney always said she appreciated receiving those profiles at orientation at the beginning of the year when she was trying to get to know over 100 names and faces all at once. It takes months for a teacher to get to know the level of information about each of their students. So one of the most important aspects of being an effective teacher is forming strong, trusting relationships with their students. Positive person-centered profiles are a powerful tool to help teachers forge this relationship as soon as possible. Try to type these student profiles, save them from year to year. This will make it a lot easier to go back and edit your profile as it's needed through the years as your children go into the upper grades. So over the years, we've done several workshops on how to create a student profile for your child. Last year, we recorded our session called Paint the Big Picture and posted it on our YouTube page. For more in-depth information about creating a powerful and effective profile for your child, watch the video. You will have access to this in the handouts and links document that was shared with you at the beginning of the session, as well as all the handouts and examples of profiles that were shared during the presentation. We frequently work with parents on creating their child's profile. So if you prefer to meet with us, so we can guide you through the process of creating one, we'd be happy to do it as well. So the next area that was really impacted my life was learning how to organize and create a file management system. Having 3 children in special education, we had a lot of paperwork. So why was it important? Well, when your paperwork's organized, first of all, you can quickly find the information that you need. Having the right information nurtures your decision-making abilities. It really releases stress and fosters timely decisions. For every agency service, doctor visit, or school meeting, you might find yourself very frustrated in responding to the forms after forms requesting the same information. Having that organized and accessible can help calm your emotions. It's less on stress and paperwork-related frustrations. Organizing your child's special education paperwork is a matter of personal preference. Some may prefer to work with the hard copies, and others may prefer to organize their files digitally. Regardless of your preference and what you're comfortable with, keeping up with all the paperwork is challenging, though it's very essential. Part of being an effective IEP team member and advocate for your child in all the areas of their life. And then part of, I know I really benefited was about journaling and documenting. And keeping a running record of everything, you never know what observations might end up really in need of in your child's meetings. You know, when you communicate with someone by phone or mail or in person about your child, medical appointments, observations about your child's health, changes at home, successes, what you notice work or doesn't work. Sometimes the most simple and seemingly insignificant detail will be a very important detail later. Keeping things in chronological order will help you communicate more effectively when others are sharing information. It will also help you notice patterns of behavior that may not have been obvious otherwise. You can use a composition book, you can use a digital file, even a calendar, whatever works for you. We have found that there's more and more digital files that you can access. One of the resources we give you is from PC, and they have a digital profile that portfolio, excuse me, that is excellent. So if you don't like that one or you need more, we can always look up other things for you, but you'll see that this one is very good. So we also have another guide that is actually part of from Wright's Law. It is called The Paper Chase from Robert Crabtree, and it talks about the various types of documentation that he refers to as keepers. This document, which details every type of documentation from IEPs to evaluations and progress reports, is a wonderful guide to what to save and why you may need it later. The introduction reads, if you have kids with special education needs, you can be overwhelmed with the amount of paperwork in no time at all. From the beginning of school to the time your child graduates or ages out of entitlement to special education services, the accumulation of IEP evaluations, progress reports, correspondence, notes, journals, samples of your child's work, and medical records will fill several drawers of a file cabinet and take up most of your shelf space. You might be tempted to throw out papers when they get out of hand, but this could be a mistake. Even the oldest document in your child's history can sometimes help you make a case for increased or different services under the IDEA. Having 3 children in special ed, I had a 4-drawer file cabinet. And one of the things that we found later on as we went through each of the children transitioning out in the community was the significant requests that were given to us of, we needed 7 years of my son's IEPs. They wanted the original evaluation, which, if your child's 22, 23 years old, and they were came into special education when they were really young, it's like, do you have that in your file? And luckily, I will tell you, we did not have, starting out, a parent resource center like is going on now. We learned some of the things the hard way, but I will tell you, in order to get services, whether it's when they could transition out, now there's waiver services that you can be eligible for. There's many other things that they were constantly be asking you for documentation. And so I can't tell you enough to start your file management, get those files in there and make sure they're in order. And it really will make a difference in the services your children will be able to be eligible for, and even into transitioning out into the community. So one of the things that we came across a while back is the Pacer Center Special Education Record Keeping folder. This is an amazing folder that can help you organize a lot of your paperwork, and with the sections that they have. We actually got this through a Virginia Department of Education grant that our region of PRCs purchased. And so we are going back again because we've run out of them. And so we are going to be getting these folders again in 2023-24. They are excellent when it comes to giving you the dividers. It's got an actual folder that all these are placed into. It's something that I carried actually in some of my IEP meetings, so that it's just, that's what I kept the current year in. And so you'll be able to do many things. As you can see, all the sections that they have within this very easily filing system that they have in there. Okay, so we're so glad that we have access to the grant and that we can actually have these ready for families. So through our grant, again, we can't give you any today, but again, it will kind of help you set up your own folder, your own file system for right now. It kind of gives you that idea of some of the areas you should have. Whether, it can be your file system, again, it might be a binder, it could be the Google Drive folder, whatever you choose to use. It gives you a starting point and suggestions for what to keep handy and what you'll want to bring with you during a meeting. This is also included in your handout and the links document. And Courtney, over to you.
Thank you, Sandy. All right, so our fourth and our last bullet that we wanted to talk to you about today was communication, and probably one of the most important topics that we discuss with parents. You know, how you first establish that important relationship between yourself and your child's teacher or case manager, how you communicate throughout the year, how you communicate during important meetings such as IEP meetings or school conferences, and how you communicate when problems or concerns arise can go a long way to how effective you are as an IEP team member. So I want to start with effective communication during an IEP meeting really begins before the IEP meeting. Do you know your child's IEP end date? This is the date that a new IEP must be developed by. We talked earlier about how an IEP is, it expires in a year. And so when the team meets to review the IEP and write a new one, you're going to know. You're going to get that invitation to the meeting, and you're going to be asked for your input at the meeting. Now, a lot of times when we meet with parents, we look and we don't really see a whole lot of input going into the meeting. So we talked a little bit earlier about the parent input. I just want to make sure that you know your child's IEP date so that you can start planning to share this input with your case manager. So let the case manager know that you're going to be providing a parent input section to the IEP, and we'll email it to them to add to the draft. Ask when the draft will be ready. IEP draft should be sent to you at least a week before the meeting, but it doesn't hurt to, a few weeks before the meeting or before your child's IEP is set to expire to go ahead and ask that question. Be ready for that. We recommend that you also ask for it to be emailed to you. I know most of them are now. We have run into cases where case managers have stuck it in somebody's book bag to take home, and things happened and the parent didn't get informed in time and weren't prepared for the meeting. And that IEP end date was coming up soon. Let's see. This also just so you know, when you start asking these questions and telling them you're going to be providing input and when will the draft be coming home, it just sends a very clear message that you are intending to be a very active and engaged participant at the IEP meeting. You may consider also getting input from other people. Important people in your child's life, whether it's a therapist or a scout leader or a church youth worker, a coach, etc. People who work with your child outside of school as well. So this is your opportunity to pull that input into your parent input as well. Effective communication during an IEP meeting. Hand out your child's student profile to each meeting participant before the meeting begins. It really sets the tone for the whole meeting. This is what this meeting is about, this child. Allow them time to read over the profile before the meeting begins. A lot of our meetings, children are attending their own IEP meetings when they get to a certain age, and that's entirely appropriate. Have your child hand out the profile if it's something that is appropriate to do. A meeting agenda, ask for a meeting agenda if one is not provided. A meeting agenda just really keeps everybody on track and keeps the meeting moving forward in a logical order. Stick to the agenda. It's okay to table an item on the agenda and come back to it later if needed. Just have your comments or your questions, things you want to make sure get addressed, written down so that you can reference that and during the meeting and make sure that all of those things get addressed. If someone throws out an acronym or throws out a concept or a term or something that you don't know or don't remember, just stop them and say, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask you to explain what that is again. Chances are there's somebody else at that table or in the meeting that doesn't know either and is grateful that you've asked. It also, again, sets a clear tone that you are listening and actively engaged. Some tips for effective communication during the school year. I found that those parents who came up to me and asked about my data at the very beginning of the year. That was clear to me that, that was something that they were wanting to see at the IEP meetings. They wanted to know when I was going to be taking that data. Just ask to see supporting evidence and data. It's part of your child's specially designed instruction. Your child's individualized goals or how the team tracks if they're making progress towards that specially designed instruction. Those goals should be measurable and clear to anyone who reads them. They're also assessed at regular intervals and reported on at every grading period through a progress report. At the beginning of the year, ask how and when your child will be receiving instruction on these goals, how and when they will be assessed on these goals, and that you'll be checking in regularly to see supporting evidence and data. And the way you do that can be very friendly and open and not threatening. Any teacher who's keeping data will be happy to share that data with you. And all of our special education teachers have to do this because of the IEP and what they have to keep track of in order to fill out those progress reports. Check in at regular intervals with the case manager and your child's teachers. Do this even if things are going great. That just keeps you engaged throughout the year. Stay engaged. It helps to put a reminder on your calendars to do this so that you don't forget. I liked getting those bi-weekly or weekly emails on a Friday, saying, hey, just checking in on so-and-so, how's it going? It reminded me sometimes to share something I might have forgotten when things got kind of crazy and hectic. So it's a really good idea to do that. Request an IEP meeting to discuss concerns with your child's team as concerns arise. If you suspect that any changes need to be made, use your communication logs, your work samples, and progress reports to support your rationale for the need to discuss any additions or adjustments to the IEP. Right, now we're going to move on to, this is always one that it's a little tricky for all of us, communicating when situations become difficult. That's when the emotions start rising. You might be upset, you might be angry. So I love this funny little thing that we found on Facebook. If my mouth doesn't say it, my face definitely will. We've all been guilty of this at one point or another. So let's move into some specifics about communication and how our brains interpret those nonverbal parts that are so important. All right, so you've probably seen this before. It's a well-known breakdown of the different types of communication. The words you say are largely overshadowed by two other types of communication. As you can see here, our body language and our voice and tonality give far more information to a listener than the speaker realizes. It takes a good bit of practice to keep our tones, pitch, and modulation of our voices even and steady when we feel excited or anxious or angry or sad. And our body language, what we do with our arms, how we move our eyes, which is very hard to do on a Zoom call, by the way. All of those things, crossing your arms or turning your body away from the speaker. These are all types of examples of body movements that can say quite a bit. This is not a skill that is acquired naturally. Think about a teenager when they're upset. So I'm going to paint a picture here. The volume of the voice could go up. There could be some eye rolling. The arms are crossed as they're glaring out. They might stomp off. The doors might get slammed. The brains really haven't matured enough to be able to override their emotional responses at this point without instruction. It's an extremely difficult thing for them to do when they're upset. And parents have to teach their children how to respond appropriately when they're emotional or angry. So even if you're not in a heightened emotional state, keeping our body language and our voices in line with our words can take a lot of practice. It is very hard to do when you're upset. Our brains flood with adrenaline, making it easy to act, but not as easy to think. In a meeting, people are subconsciously taking in all of your cues and forming their own narrative around the words that you're sharing or not sharing. And this is why it's helpful to write out what you want to say ahead of time and stick to that. Now, have you ever been so upset with someone or about something that you can barely think straight? Have you ever sent an email or a text while you were angry or made a phone call while you were in a heightened emotional state? You're more likely to say things in a manner that may be considered rude or even shocking to the person or people receiving the email or text. You may have the right to feel angry or sad, but if you're looking for a productive solution to the problem, Putting people on the defensive isn't the most efficient way to go about it. Have you ever received a phone call from someone who was upset? The tone, pitch, volume, and speed of speech are often the pieces that the listener picks up on first. And they know, you know that they're upset. So you move quickly to attempt to extract meaning from the words to get to the reason why they're so upset. The problem is people are more likely to jump around in the narrative when they're upset, and the chronological order of what the problem is often unravels backwards. Taking the time to process your problem or issue is very important. What triggers a person's anger or emotional upheaval can often be a tipping point, but the root of the problem may have started some time ago. It's helpful to go back to your journaling or documentation to put your thoughts together in a logical, cohesive manner. Write it down, then set it aside for a bit. Unless the matter is an urgent safety issue that must be addressed immediately, and those do arise, you can afford to step away for a bit and think through your response. Take a few hours to allow your brain time to adjust. Then come back and look at it again. You'll likely see wording that seems harsh and critical, which are indicative to what you may be feeling, and rightly so sometimes, but not necessary to get the point across in a professional manner. If it can wait, try sleeping on it. The emotions that triggered the rush of adrenaline in your brain will likely have subsided by the next day, making it much easier to think clearly and form the words you need to express your concern in a way that will be perceived more favorably to the receiving end of that email or text. Even in a completely normal text or message, our meaning can get misinterpreted very easily. And this makes sense since the reader cannot rely on our voices or body language to help put that additional meaning to our words. And this is why it's really important to reread your written communications carefully and perhaps have another person read it too before sending it. I'm convinced it's also why emojis were invented, because you always see the little winkies or the smiley faces on text so that the recipient knows that they're smiling or they're joking or something, to add that little context to what they're sending you. Now, again, this is a class that we can teach and go into a lot of depth on. We're really kind of skimming the surface here, but we did put some additional resources and tips into your handouts and links packet. This is a topic that is addressed by some of our favorite resources, PETC, the Parent Educational Advocacy Training Center, and the PACER Center, which is out in Illinois, but we love their resources and their website, as well as some other resources that we, I think over the years, I'm not even sure where we've gotten them, but we've held on to them for quite a long while because we share them with parents quite a bit. So feel free to take a look at these additional resources in your packet. They are really focused on creating a true partnership between families and schools based on mutual trust, respect, shared goals and successes, because ultimately we all have the same goal for our children and our students, and that's to see them succeed. Earlier in the presentation, we told you about, we shared the links with you and told you that you would have access to these links to these guides. Not everybody likes to see the information online, especially considering some of these guides are pretty big. We do have copies of these at the Parent Resource Center, and you can come in and look at them. And also we can make copies for you. We do have some copies of the book on the left, The Regulations Governing Special Education Programs for Children with Disabilities in Virginia. We contact VDOE regularly when we start running low on those, and they'll send us another box. However, the one in the middle and the one on the right are no longer being printed by VDOE, but they still have the links on their website. And the Parent's Guide to Special Education, the one right on top there, that's one we reference with parents quite a bit. That one is currently, it was revised, I think, Sandy, about, 10 years ago. And things, laws change, and we finally have had word that this should be coming out, a new version of this should be coming out soon. And we're excited about that because we definitely needed a new version of that one. So let us know if you'd like for us to print you a copy, and we can get that to you. These are some of the other resources that we have available for parents to check out in our library. These books all come from Wright's Law, very popular books. So just to let you know, there's the special education law book, there's From Emotions to Advocacy, and another popular one all about IEPs, which answers a lot of frequently asked questions about IEPs. And here's some more resources that we pulled. There are more in our library other than this. you are welcome to stop by and pick up one of these books. If you see something in here you definitely want, you don't have time to stop by, our library also sends resources out to the schools. So we can send something to your child's school and you can either pick it up from the front office if you choose, or we can ask the school to send it home with your child, whichever you find is the most helpful to you. Okay. If you don't know where we're located, we are out in the Spotsy Courthouse area. We're located right beside Spotsylvania Elementary School, which used to be Robert E. Lee Elementary School. And we are located inside the Center for Family and Preschool Services building on Brock Road. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. But we do a lot of evening events, and we are also willing to meet with you in the evening if you can't come to the center between 8 and 4, as a lot of working parents can't. And just want to leave this up on the screen and let you know of our contact information. We have our email there, as well as our phone number. And if you've never visited our website, we always have our current newsletter posted right on our website. And we also maintain a Facebook and a Twitter page. So we put a lot of our information that's coming up on Facebook, and it's worth following that if you're looking for those little resources and tips that we'll throw on there from time to time as well.